Biltmore House has stood for more than a century and draws thousands of visitors every year.
What most people don't know is how a small black community was very much involved with its creation. WRAL's Gerald Owens is here with the backstory that has a personal connection with you.
That's right, Lena. George Vanderbilt fell in love with Asheville on a visit in the late 1800s. He wanted to build his dream home there, but he needed land. It said that Vanderbilt didn't want neighbors close to his house, so he bought 125,000 acres. The most important of which, a 325-acre parcel owned by the people of a small community called Shiloh. A few dozen families own that land, including some related to me. Are any names on there?
Not a one. We don't even know how many people are buried in this area.
Anita White has a personal interest in this old Asheville cemetery in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains.
These last names are familiar because in the community we had certain names: Owenses, Whites, Logans, Collins.
She grew up in this community called New Shiloh. To understand its historical significance, you have to go back 135 years to Old Shiloh, when newly freed enslaved people had a life-changing decision to make.
When George Vanderbilt first came here, and the story goes that he took a ramble on horseback and came to this spot and decided the prospect was finer than any he had ever seen and decided he wanted to build his house here.
The house was Biltmore. To this day, it's America's largest private residence and a national landmark. Lauren Henry is curator.
This hill is, just the right spot, and this is what inspired him to have that vision for what Biltmore could be.
Shiloh residents had to be convinced to uproot their lives and sell this beautiful land. It was an unlikely transaction that paved the way for America's grandest estate. Vanderbilt did it with the help of a local pastor who was also a member of the Shiloh community, Reverend William Logan. He gained the residents' trust and convinced them to sell. The residents were paid as much as twice the value of their properties, up to 10 times in some cases. Vanderbilt paid to move everything, their homes, their church, even the bodies in the cemetery, to the place now known as New Shiloh.
These are the people who came who were reinterred.
Like here, just a stone.
Yeah, that's a stone.
No name, no date. Many of the Shiloh residents worked on the construction of Biltmore and in some other capacity after it was completed. Their memories being kept alive today through Anita's hard work and a project at the University of North Carolina at Asheville. Students there are mapping black family histories through a tapestry of headstones, public records, and input from relatives.
These are such important people to the history of Asheville. And they built Asheville. They ran Biltmore. They built Biltmore. They built downtown Asheville.
I've created a connection to some people interred in this cemetery that just doesn't really make much sense because I never knew them.
Uncle Sylvester. I too have a connection with the people in this cemetery. Sylvester Owens is my grandfather's first cousin. Many of these headstones belong to my ancestors. Sylvester Owens worked at Biltmore as a groundskeeper for 44 years, eventually becoming head groundskeeper and making a name for himself through his love of azaleas.
He actually ultimately became in charge of many of the planted areas on the estate. So he was overseeing crews that were doing all of the gardening, not just the azalea garden, but that's certainly where his heart was and why there was an Ebony article on him titled Azalea King.
What do you think your ancestor would say to you?
I think they would be happy to be remembered, and that's what makes me feel good, that these people will not be forgotten.
Many of my ancestors lived in Shiloh and worked at the Biltmore Mansion. George Vanderbilt didn't just make a deal with these families, he cared about them. Vanderbilt once asked to attend the new Shiloh Church to see how the community was faring after being asked to make such a consequential decision. There's much more to this story. You'll find it on WRAL.com.
Wow. It's so inspiring that students, too, Gerald, led to all of this history being uncovered.
And they're very passionate about their work. And they're uncovering this kind of history, not just for the Shiloh community, but other communities in the Asheville area.
I can't wait to see what they figure out next.
Yeah.
Great story, Gerald.
Thank you.